I'd been out of work for a few months when I saw the listing. Night security guard wanted, high pay, low stress. It sounded too good to be true, especially for an old department store that had shut down years ago. But desperate times make desperate choices, and I didn't exactly have options. The job was simple enough. One building, one shift, midnight to 6. Just me and a bunch of dusty mannequins in a place no one visited anymore. When I showed up for the interview, there was no receptionist, no HR rep, just a man waiting in a folding chair by the front entrance. He introduced himself as Mr. Dalton, the building's manager. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, and his handshake was ice cold. "You'll be the only one here," he said, his voice low. "We've kept the cameras running and the lights on. All you need to do is walk the floors every hour and make sure nothing's out of place." I asked him why the store needed a guard if it wasn't even open. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Some things don't like being left alone. I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Before I left, he handed me a worn envelope. Inside was a printed sheet of paper. Rules. I thought it was a checklist at first. It wasn't. Rules for surviving the night shift. 1. Do your rounds every hour. Never be late. Never be early. 2. Avoid the second floor women's fitting room after 2:13 a.m. 3. If you hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around until they stop. 4. Keep the lights in the toy section on. If they go out, leave immediately. 5. Don't speak to anyone you see in the mirrors. They're not real. 6. If you hear a voice over the intercom, cover your ears until it stops. 7. At exactly 3:33 a.m., return to the security room. Lock the door. Do not leave until 4 a.m. I stared at the list, unsure whether to laugh or leave. I didn't do either. I needed the money. That first night, I told myself it was just a prank to haze the new guy. By 11:55 p.m., I was inside the security room, an old office tucked into the back hallway. The air smelled like mildew and something else, something metallic. The cameras were ancient, the footage grainy, but I could make out the store's familiar sections: men's, women's, electronics, toys. Everything was still. Too still. At midnight, I started my first round. The building was freezing, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones. As I walked, the silence pressed in from all sides. Every creak of the floor felt like it echoed for miles. I passed by rows of mannequins, their plastic faces forever stuck in frozen smiles. They seemed closer together than I remembered from the cameras. I told myself I was imagining things. The first round went smoothly, but when I returned to the security room and checked the monitors, I noticed something odd. One of the mannequins had moved. It wasn't just a hunch. I was sure of it. Earlier, it had been facing the escalator. Now it faced the toy section. I leaned closer to the screen, and for a split second, I thought it tilted its head toward me. I blinked. It was still again. I remembered Rule 1, stay on schedule. So I did. On the second round, I skipped the toy section, telling myself I'd check it later. That was a mistake. When I got back to the monitors, the toy section camera was dark, static. I got a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. I grabbed my flashlight and headed back. The lights above the toy aisles had gone out. Everything was shrouded in darkness, except for one thing: a single battery-operated doll lying on the floor. It was blinking slowly. Its head tilted from side to side, even though it wasn't switched on. That's when the music started. Software, distant, a lullaby. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the office, slamming the door shut behind me. I checked the cameras again. The toy section feed flickered back to life. Everything looked normal now except for one new detail. There was a figure standing in the aisle. Not a mannequin, not a doll. A tall, shadowy figure, unmoving, watching. It disappeared before I could get a better look. I tried to collect myself. I told myself it was sleep deprivation or nerves. I hadn't had a full night's rest in days. But when I checked the time, my blood ran cold. 2:12 a.m. I remembered Rule 2. Avoid the second-floor women's fitting room after 2:13 a.m. I watched the seconds tick by. 2:13, then 2:14. And that's when the camera feed from the second-floor women's fitting room turned on by itself. There was no motion in the area. Nothing should have triggered it. But the screen lit up, showing rows of stalls and a long mirror stretching across the wall. At first, the room was empty. Then something stepped into view. It looked like a woman, but there was something wrong with the way she moved. Her arms hung loosely at her sides, her legs barely lifted. She walked with a disjointed, twitching motion, like a puppet. She turned toward the mirror, and although her reflection showed her face clearly, the figure itself had none. Just smooth skin, stretched where features should be. I tore my eyes away. I had broken Rule 5. The mirror began to fog. From inside the security room, I could hear soft breathing, but it wasn't mine. I turned off the monitor. I didn't do another round for a while after that. 3:33 a.m. I nearly forgot the rule, but as soon as I saw the time, I rushed back into the office and locked the door. The next 27 minutes were the longest of my life. At first, nothing happened. I paced, checked the feeds, tried to stay calm. Then the intercom crackled. Security to aisle 4. The voice was deep, distorted, like someone playing a tape backward. I covered my ears, remembering Rule 6. The sound grew louder, more aggressive, like it was trying to claw its way inside my head. Then, silence. 4 a.m. came and I opened the door. I resumed my patrols, this time more cautious, more alert. Every creak of the building felt alive. Every camera showed something slightly wrong. The mannequins had multiplied. There were too many now. Some of them had new faces, smiling, frowning, screaming. 5 a.m. I was almost done. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate. I stopped. My blood turned to ice. Don't turn around until they stop. The steps grew louder, closer. My heart pounded against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, until finally, silence. I turned. No one was there, but in the reflection of a nearby window, I saw her again, the woman from the fitting room. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the office. I watched the seconds tick down. 5:59, 6 o'clock. A knock at the door. "Shift's over," said a voice. "Mr. Dalton." I opened the door slowly. He was standing there, smiling like nothing had happened. "Rough night?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just handed him the key card and walked out into the morning light. I didn't ask about the rules. I didn't ask about the cameras or the woman. I didn't want to know. But as I walked to my car, I saw someone standing in the second-floor window, watching me. I never looked back, and I never went back. Some buildings aren't empty. They're waiting.